you, gentlemen, for appearing for us today. When you consider the automatic SIFI threshold as a somewhat arbitrary number, but we have to draw arbitrary numbers in the law all the time, at $50 billion, you can imagine that it's also going to be diminishing in a way that monetary thresholds do, but non-monetaries don't because of inflation or expanding economy. The same could also be the case for other Dodd-Frank thresholds, and I'd just like to go down the line, if we could, and ask if you would support indexing thresholds in Dodd-Frank to inflation, to real GDP growth, or to any other kind of economic measure.
It's probably worth considering, Senator, but as the very last clause of your question suggested, it may not be as straightforward a matter to think what you'd index it to. You know, would you index it to inflation, to GDP, to the total amount of, to the size of institutions, concentration? So I think it's worth thinking about, but my instinct is that inflation probably wouldn't be the right thing to index it to.
Do you have an instinct on what would be?
If there were one, it would be GDP, but I'd want to think about that a little bit more.
Okay. Mr. Curry.
I think indexing has some opportunities, as Governor Tarullo mentioned, but again, I think the theme in our testimony is that we think that the asset threshold is one consideration in determining whether or not an institution is systemically significant or of heightened supervisory concern. There's a balance, I think, between the activities that the bank is engaged in and other factors that have to be considered as well.
Senator, I think conceptually it's worth thinking about. In some sense, hard to argue against, although the methodology may raise issues. I think just on the other side of that, the clarity of having a clear threshold without adjusting it, and particularly if there are sensitivities, because when you have a threshold, there are always going to be institutions on both sides of it. So having a clear threshold that's clear and transparent and understood may have some value. I do think the key issue goes to providing some flexibility for the agencies if you're going to set a threshold to differentiate among firms that may be above the threshold, because wherever the threshold is, there are clearly going to be distinctions, and even if additional scrutiny is warranted, you want an ability to distinguish among the institutions to apply the appropriate standards.
Okay. Governor Tarullo, I was not here in September. I was in the House on the Financial Services Committee, but in your opening statement to this committee last September, you had said, quote, there could also be some benefit from some statutory changes. One would be to raise the current $50 billion asset threshold that determines which banks are in the systemic category, end quote. Just 2 days ago, in front of my old colleagues on the House Financial Services Committee, Secretary Lew said that he opposes raising that threshold. Did Secretary Lew or any other administration official take issue with your statement in front of the Financial Services Committee last fall?
Not directly to me, no. And I think, I mean, I haven't read the transcript of what Secretary Lew said. I read the press accounts of it, and I think he was pointing to the discretion and administrative flexibility that we do have. What I've been particularly focused on is the stress testing threshold.
When he says not directly to you, indirectly to anyone on your team?
Whatever he may be saying publicly, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Thank you. I'll yield back the balance of my time.